Hey everybody, welcome back to the Planes, Trains, and Comic Books channel. I'm Matt, and today we're going to review Nice House on the Lake, #1. And before we get into it, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing, subscribing, all that stuff, it really helps me out. That being said, let's get straight into it. This is the cover for Nice House on the Lake, #1. Nice spooky cover. I like that. It's the new DC Black Label, which is like their mature line, I guess, comic by James Tynion IV. Now, I haven't read too much stuff by this guy, but apparently he's like DC's new, big heavy hitter or whatever. So this guy's writing Batman and a couple other things. He's been on a good run for the last couple years where he's just been, building his cred, I guess, as a writer, where people pretty much will pick up stuff just because he's writing it now. So right away we start off and we're in. This is the future actually for the book. This woman Ryan is here. She's got a spear and she looks like she's been through some stuff, and she's talking about how it's kind of like this reminded me of like Casablanca, like of all the bars in all the world, you had to walk into mine kind of thing. But that's kind of how she starts this, where she's just kind of like, it was the end of a late night in Brooklyn, and I was one of many people in a bar, and it could have been anybody, and blah blah blah. And then he asked this question, and we're like, wait, who asked this question? Then we cut back to the past, and we see this guy. He asked the question, how do you think the world will end? This person's name is Walter. So he starts talking to Ryan, and I guess this is something they do. After this time, when she thinks about it, and she's like, oh, I think the world will kind of end slowly, and by the world she means America for the most part, then they talk about it fairly often. Then we come back to her walking back up to the steps. So as you saw on the first page, there was like some kind of fire or something at a certain part that she was standing in front of, and then now she's walking back up to the house. So that's setting up like the future that we're going to find out about this place. So, and then she says, "Oh, and then I didn't hear from him after so long." She's talking about how she and Walter would meet up every now and then. He would text her and say like, "Hey, so what else at the end of the world? What do you think about this? And what do you think about that?" So I guess he just liked to talk about the end of the world. So he didn't see her for 2 years, she says, and then she randomly got an email from him. Basically, it says, "Hey, I was able to get this awesome house for this weekend or whatever. If you and a couple other close friends don't mind hanging out, let's all meet up at this house." And she accepts. And then we see now this is like day one. This is before everything happens that we kind of saw at the beginning, where she was had her spear and everything. This is her walking up to the house, and we see she's labeled the artist. And we get her name for the first time in the book. She's Ryan Kane. She's 26 years old. She's female. She's from New York. Friend of the comedian, we find out, who's another person here. So basically, don't need to get into everything, but her and a bunch of other people are invited to this house. We meet them one by one as we're introduced to the house, and each of them get a name and a symbol. It's kind of reminding me of like 13 Ghosts or something, or even like Cabin in the Woods, where like, oh, there's obviously with these names and symbols some like higher reason for them being here. They're archetypes, or they're chosen for some reason besides just like their personalities or whatever. It's like, oh, you fit this role that I need to fill. So and then we find out like, oh, yeah, pretty much everybody knows everybody from high school except Ryan. Ryan's the only one who isn't from high school. They haven't known her as long as everybody else. Pretty much that's it. We just get introduced to everybody, and then Walter shows up finally, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm here. I'm glad everybody made it." Then we get them hanging out at night, the first night, and it's a pool party, and everybody's talking, having fun, drinking, catching up, all that. And Ryan kind of being the outsider of the group, I guess. Like I said, she's not school friends or whatever. She's like a friend that they or someone they know from like 4 or 5 years ago. And so she kind of goes off on her own, and she looks at her phone, And what does she see? But everybody talking about in like social media, the world's ending. Like people saying New York and all the big cities are on fire, and people are saying they're burning alive. Someone says, I just watched Anderson Cooper burn to death on television. Just, crazy, fucked up shit. I'm not going to spoil the end of this and like why everything's happening and what's happening. The world is ending. These people are not ending. They're in a nice lake house. But while they're there, the whole world is being attacked. So I don't want to spoil everything for you guys because it is a pretty good reveal of exactly what's going on, and we kind of got a little bit of a hint of it from the first couple pages. Yeah, this one is a weird one because I had to be in the mood to read it. Like from the first page, I was like, "There's too much fucking words on this page." And then like I was like, let's see if it just maybe this is the first page. I went to the second page, was like, oh my god, there's so many fucking words on these pages. I had to like make myself read it at first, and I had to be like kind of in the mood to read it. Which it came out like 3 weeks ago. So I've been putting it off since then because it just was not in the mood to read something that's got like so wordy and so much going on. But I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5. It's a solid book. I would say, you know, it's a recommend, but it's a if you are interested in end of the world scenario, if that's up your wheelhouse, then check this one out because it is well written and everything. It just I had to be in the mood for it. Hey, if you guys wouldn't mind like, sharing, subscribing, commenting down below again, that would be helpful for me. And let me know if you guys are liking this because I'm having fun reading all these comics and showing you them as I go through them. So on that note, we'll see you on the next one.